discourse may go down the wrong path. And all the effort that we have been doing for the last year may fall completely. This is the message that the friendly partner of the EU, as the EU, would like to share with all of you this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Let me now call Shirwaynaha Miti, Swiss Head of Somalia Office.
Deputy Prime Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as donor co-chair of the Pillar Working Group on Inclusive Politics, Switzerland welcomes the progress made in the review of the provisional constitution since the last partnership forum in Brussels last year. We also commend the continued constructive collaboration between the Ministry of Constitutional Affairs, the Parliamentary Oversight Committee, and the Independent Constitutional Review and Implementation Commission, and this in particular following the sad loss of Minister earlier this year. These three bodies have successfully finalized the technical review of the 15 chapters of the Provisional Constitution. This represents an important milestone. It creates political confidence in the review process and sends out a strong message to the Somali people as well as to the international community. The federal government and the federal member states are now invited to define their respective stance and to conduct the necessary political negotiations in order to settle the outstanding political questions and complete the constitutional review. Furthermore, we welcome the recent increased cooperation between the two houses of the federal parliament, which have a crucial role to play in the entire law-making and state-building process. Yet, we regret that the political tensions between the leadership of the federal government and the federal member states have been negatively impacting the political dialogue and debate in Somalia. They have created an environment that is not conducive to reaching settlements on key issues of the Constitution, such as the horizontal and vertical distribution of power or the sharing of resources, just to name a few examples, as well as other important pieces of legislation, such as the electoral law and the amendments to the political party law that are urgently needed in view of the federal elections. We all agree the time is of the essence, particularly in view of the elections as Minister Saleh underlined. And we therefore call upon all actors to adopt a constructive and dedicated attitude with a view to finding political and legal solutions for the adoption of the revised constitution, thus establishing solid foundations for a democratic society and the rule of law. This will also ensure that the years dedicated to reviewing the provisional constitution and the significant financial means invested into this process to date have been well spent. It goes without saying that the state-building process cannot be taken forward, let alone be completed, without investing in reconciliation and political settlements at all levels of government. We therefore encourage the federal government of Somalia to continue an inclusive process of dialogue with the different parts of the Somali society, including women, youth and minority groups, civil society, private sector and the federal member states, on the implementation of the NDP 9 and to develop a strategy for engaging on the outstanding political issues with all stakeholders and key role players. Hence, we call upon the federal government of Somalia and the federal member states to prioritize the constitutional review and to convene as soon as possible a MOCA forum, that is a forum that will bring together all ministers of constitutional affairs in order to deliberate on the outstanding political questions in a transparent, participatory and inclusive manner. Switzerland is and will remain committed to supporting both the constitutional review process as well as the activities and effectiveness of the parliament at both the federal and member states level, and in so doing will continue to engage with the Somali partners on these critical issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ciro. Let me now call Ambassador Carlo Campanelli.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. First of all, let me say that it really aligned itself to the statement made by the European Union delegate. I think we must acknowledge, first of all, the important progress achieved so far. Some of them have been mentioned in the previous intervention. We mentioned the adoption of the National Reconciliation Framework. The constitutional reform is underway. We referred to the recent Ishmael conference in Galveston, and that's very important. His Excellency Salah J. Jama, Minister of Constitutional Affairs, did reference to the next Congress elections, saying that they will be inclusive and in full respect of the rule of law and democratic principle. That's very important assurance given to us today. We should also acknowledge some progress at tactical level in the preparation of one person, one vote federal elections in 2020-21. That's great. The distance walked so far is really impressive. Sometimes when we should look back and realize what was the point of departure. But of course, huge challenges still remain to be addressed and solved. It's a clear evidence to all that the improvement of political dialogue between federal and regional leaders is an essential prerequisite to proceed further in this process. On the election, I fully share what's already said by Ambassador Berlanga. The time is right. There is an increasing demand for participation in political life in this country. Women, young, private sector, they are all eager to contribute to the public life. One person, one vote means also that. So we strongly encourage all small leaders to reinforce the cooperative approach in cooperation, in contributing to setting up the most favorable climate, because there is a sense, an increasing sense of urgency. The feeling is that in the international community, time is running short. So, but everything is possible in this country. That's my experience. Everything is possible. Somalis are the most resilient people in the world. So you have capacity and the strength, the willingness to go for that, and we believe that is really possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Let me now call Ambassador Mette Knudsen, Denmark.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Deputy Prime Minister, Excellencies, colleagues. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to also make a few remarks. First of all, I would like to associate myself with the remarks made by the representative of the European Union and also representatives of EU member states. I also want to associate myself with the remarks made by the SRSD and the representative of Norway on behalf of the Soomaaliya Development Group. Of course, a lot has already been said, but allow me to underline just a few points. We are discussing inclusivity. Inclusivity is very much about getting the relationship between the federal government and the federal member states right. But it's also about including local authorities, giving space for women, giving space for youth, and for minority clans. To consolidate inclusion, to consolidate inclusive politics, we absolutely need to see the constitutional process brought to conclusion. It's through the constitution that agreements on power sharing, on distribution of resources, on involvement of citizens are cast in stone, and that it becomes something that the citizens can rely on. So I very much encourage the Minister of Constitutional Affairs to continue with the important work he has taken upon himself and really try to conclude this process. Next step, of course, or rather a parallel step, is to adopt the election laws. We would very much hope that it would be possible for the electoral law to be adopted by Parliament and signed into law before the end of the year. And in that regard, I would strongly encourage focus on ensuring that women's full and equal and meaningful participation and representation is ensured. I promised my Somali sisters sitting here behind me that I would especially put emphasis on this point. They say they've been fighting for 30 years, so now they want to see results. So please give them those results and let us make sure that there is space for women. Also, just a few remarks on human rights, because respect for human rights, respect for the rule of law is also what ensures that citizens can participate equally and freely in the life of their country. And in this context, I think it's very important that while important steps have been taken, Somalia has signed up to important conventions, being active in the UPR process. We would still very much hope that we could very soon see the appointment of the commissioners of the Human Rights Commission, the institutionalization of this commission, and also that it gets included in the state budget. It would also be very important that a number of bills that are pending in Parliament are finally passed, such as the Sexual Offences Bill, the FGM Bill, and the Child Rights Bill. I hope that this can happen also within a very short time. I think getting inclusion right, getting rule of law right is a very important part of stabilization and reconciliation efforts, and I think we will not come far along the road to stabilizing Somalia and creating the right basis also for economic and social development if we don't get the issues around respect for human rights, respect for the rule of law right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Let me now call Erik Lundbäck, Ambassador for Finland.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by also aligning myself with the statement made by the EU Ambassador on behalf of the European Union. But let me also present a few comments and underline a couple of points from a Finnish perspective. Firstly, I want to warmly congratulate the federal government of Somalia as well as the federal member states for your efforts in advancing peace and development in Somalia, as we've heard a lot about today. And I also want to thank you for our continuing partnership. Important steps have been taken in various sectors, including reconciliation. A national reconciliation process is crucial for development and state building in Somalia, from political power sharing to social development, from the national level all the way to the grassroots. We underline the importance of a Somali-led and a Somali-owned reconciliation to foster unity, equality and inclusivity. Women, youth and marginalized communities play a key role in this reconciliation, as in all political and social processes. Finland remains a staunch supporter of health development in Somalia, including sexual and reproductive health and rights of women and girls. The well-being of the population is a key factor in achieving sustainable development, peace and reconciliation. These and other goals can only be achieved by close cooperation between the federal government and the federal member states with the international community as a committed partner. There is a need to find political agreement on the key challenges as quickly as possible. We look forward to continuing our strong partnership and are in fact increasing our support and cooperation with Somalia. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Ambassador. Let me now call Fiona Kuanlan, Ambassador for Ireland.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister, Ministers, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Government of Ireland, I also wish to fully align ourselves with the statement delivered by my EU colleague, and to say that Ireland extends our full support to the people of Somalia and joins with the international community in expressing solidarity with the Government of Somalia as you continue your peace-building and state-building efforts in what is a very complex environment. Ireland commends the efforts of the federal government in advancing the economic reform agenda and in particular debt relief. However, Ireland remains very concerned that ongoing insecurity and tensions between the federal government and member states could undermine these hard-won achievements. Therefore, we also amplify the call for greater political will made by our EU colleague. But in particular, I'd like to focus on the importance to which Ireland attaches to the protection and empowerment of women and girls, and the promotion of women's leadership and participation in decision-making at local, regional and national levels in Somalia. As per our commitments in UNSCR 1325 on women, peace and security, Ireland would like to see more emphasis on the critical role of women and girls in conflict prevention and resolution, peace negotiation, peace building and post-conflict resolution, reconstruction and governance. We also call for stronger human rights, protection systems and institutional capacity building to ensure accountability and tackle impunity for human rights violations, specifically with regard to sexual violence and the use of children in armed conflict. Ireland strongly advocates for the implementation of the National Action Plan to address FGM, which was introduced this year. And let me close by saying we continue to stand with the EU and our international partners in solidarity with Somalia as we focus all our efforts to secure a peaceful and stable future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. That brings us to the end of interventions from at least a number of ambassadors. But I want to open the floor for additional interventions. Let me begin with Osman, Civil Society Organization.
Thank you very much. His Excellency Deputy Prime Minister Mahdi Koulé and James Wan, Excellency SRPS, and Ambassador Mader, the Chairman of African Union, and ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, good afternoon. As with civil society, we really acknowledge the several efforts that the federal government and the member of states, federal states, to strengthen security and social service, economic and institutional development. We believe there are a lot of needs to do political inclusivity, and that cannot be achieved without addressing properly the political conflict between the federal government and the member states. This is really very crucial. I think we believe it has been achieved with several issues if this collaboration will be much better than the way it is now. However, the CSO would like to recommend the following in order to make sure the political inclusivity. First, finalizing the draft constitutions, which is very crucial to many things, such as the election, the resource sharing, and the political inclusivity. To consider the voice of civil society and give space the civil society to participate all the efforts to develop and implement the national policies. Excellency, we have been established our government institutions through power sharing system, which we believe was not helping our people to trust more their leaders. Therefore, we recommended to include responsibility sharing the process of the political inclusivity. To settle the political conflict between the federal government and the member states through dialogue and mutual understanding. Recently, the civil society, with the collaboration with AMISOM, has organized several forums, and we have so far conducted 2 forums, which is part of several forums that come in the coming months. And those forums we will discuss about the election. So there are several recommendations came up through these forums. And these are, to be very clear, the women inclusivity in all sectors and all the government levels. This should be written in the Constitution, not only by oral. To be clear, the role of marginalized group and the youth in the political process. To hold a consultation meeting led by the federal government, but include the political parties, the CSOs, and the member states to discuss and come up a strategy to reach one man, one person, one vote in the coming election. To establish the institutional that will support the coming election in order to the election become free and fair. These institutions included the Constitutional Court, the Human Rights Commission, and the electoral law, which could not be against the Constitution and the mandate of the National Independent Electoral Commission. These all we conclude as a civil society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Osman. Ambassador Ben Fender, UK.
Deputy Prime Minister, thank you very much. Nicholas has said with such power and eloquence so many of the things I wanted to say that I should be very brief. But I did want to add a couple of things. I don't think anyone is here in Somalia because they're afraid of hard truths or hard decisions. We've all of us come to this place in different ways because we recognize there are many problems here and we want to join hands to solve them. So I think it needs to be acknowledged that alongside the highly competent and often inspiring technical progress that's been done by Salah Jama's ministry and by Halima's election commission, we need to acknowledge that not everything is rosy in the world of inclusive politics. On the question of the electoral law and the constitutional review, I'm delighted that this meeting will reaffirm the intention to enact the electoral law by the end of the year. But I would say that's going to be a tough ride. We must make sure that we don't do it in a way that the constitutional review could then unravel it for the next elections. And we need to do it on that time frame if donors are to be able to support the next electoral process in a timely way. So we will all need to pull together behind that. On the wider questions, as I said, despite the technical progress, I think we need to acknowledge that at the political level, there are still many problems. We have had a successful election in Puntland since the last SPF, albeit a corrupt one. I am optimistic that the process ongoing in Galmudug may lead to a settlement acceptable to all and inclusive elections. But we need to acknowledge that the elections in Southwest State and Jubaland fell a long way short of the aspirations that we all have for this country. We need to acknowledge that in some parts of the country it's not possible to open a political party office. That in some parts of the country journalists are getting arrested. And that is not what we came here to do. And at a political level, there is still not the kind of dialogue and consensus building between the federal government and the member state presidents that will be necessary to address a wide range of issues. And the fault of that lies on many sides, but it also lies with the federal government. And I think to move forward from this, we're going to need a couple of things. The first is real leadership is going to have to be shown on all sides, at a political level to overcome these struggles. A real willingness to compromise. There are very different views on the electoral law. We are going to have to come together and do that and be firm about our common purpose. But the thing I would say above all is these issues won't be solved unless we can believe again in an idea of win-win, an idea that the reconstruction of Somalia and that this project that we're engaged in matters more than any of our regional, personal, national differences. And if there is sort of one message I would send to this forum, it's really an appeal, because this next year is going to be hard on inclusive politics, and it's going to buffet us. But we've all invested far too much over far too long to fail. But what it really requires will be leadership and that belief in the Somalia project and the determination that we will succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Penfender. I think there is no other comment or intervention. So you did speak. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Area Deputy. Prime Minister, Mr. Chairman, I would be remiss if I didn't make a few remarks in addition to what has already been said. We echo the support of the passing of the Sexual Offences Bill and the FGM legislation. It is time. These commitments will not only result in clear changes in behavior and attitude in the long term, but together they will effectively criminalize a wide range of awful sexual offenses, provide vital support to survivors, and clearly define roles and responsibility of those investigating and prosecuting sexual violence. From our membership, we also call on the federal government of Somalia and all international partners to continue taking the lead in strengthening local peace structures. From the last session, I would also be remiss if I did not congratulate Minister Jamal and the entire MOPID team on the passing of the NDP 9 and the excellent national ownership that it has been founded on over the last few years. We welcome the MGO bill, hopefully the Parliament approval in October, and ensuring that the previous commitment to pass a harmonized legal framework for the registration of NGOs has finally come to fruition. We also echo the need to elevate gender and human rights in all national policies, including the NDP 9, but also in inclusive politics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me invite two ladies. I think they are sitting behind the table. Amina Haji and Asli.
Yeah.
Let me call Amina first.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Prime Minister Kuxigenka, Mahdi, Ambassador Swan, iyo martida kale oo sharafta leh waa salaamayaa maadaama intervention waxay weeyeen waa ugu dheeraanaysa waqtigan soo yareeyaan rabaa anigu magacayga waxaa la yidhaha Amina Xaaji Cilmi waxaan ahay gudoomiye directorka SSWC haddana waxaan ka mid ahay ururka Somali Women Leaders oo gadaasheeda inta fadhiday qaar naga maqan waxaan ku hadlayaa magaca haweenka Soomaaliyeed waxaan rabaa magaca haweenka Soomaaliyeed inaan ugu hadalno dawladeeda sharafta leh oo waxay qabadkeedii noo sheegtay wax badan oo ay ka tagaan oo qabteen oo bulshada u qabteen ay jirto waa uga hambalyeynaa waxaan kaloo rabaa inaan u hambaliyeeyo international partnerska roolkii Soomaaliya ay ka qaateen haddaysan ahayn jiritaankooda ama gacantooda meesha Soomaaliya maanta joogto lama joogeen waa ku mahadsantiin marka waa mahadsantiin haweenka maadkaas ka soo gudbiyay ummadda Soomaaliyeed inta ka maqan waxaan rabaa inclusive politics marka laga hadlayo haddaan haweenka nahay annaga dalkan oo wax arrintu ay si kale iska tahay waxaan ka bilownay gacanna carruurta iyo reerka inaan ku maamulno gacanna aan haweenku siday uga qayb geli lahaayeen decision makingka aan ku diyaarino alxamdulillah maanta halkaan soo gaarsiinay laakiin waxaa noo dhiman hal jug ah oo kor u kacno oo dawladda iyo international community uga baahannahay oo ah once and for all in constitutionka lagu qoro kootada haweenka markaan leenahay lagu qoro waxaan ognahay dadka qaar baa waxay qabaan dadku waa isla mid Soomaaliya waa Soomaaliya Soomaaliya waa Soomaaliya laakiin rag iyo haween baan kala nahay dhibkooda waa soo aragnay waxaan u baahannahay jeernigii dheeraa oo soo marnay oo 30 sano intii dagaalku dalka ka jiray anagu waa joogay kama aanan bixin intayadaanba waxaan ugu jirnay Soomaaliya in loo yimaado Soomaalida aad u timaadeen iyo mid kasta qurux badan si ay ku dhalato waxaan rabnaa constitutionku inuu noqdo qof walba wixii sagaal inuu kaga noqdo qof walba marka aan leeyahay mujtamaca qayb walba waa qaybsan warka walaashii aad baa sheegaysa waa maatin
أصلي سودو
ودوهاي أنا أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته أنا برايم مينستر كحيانكا وكسلاني إيو إنت كلامرتيدا كلا ودن منصب كي يقفل بكفر ديدو بروتوكول كيدو وكسلامي وبوبسينا يا وركي يا سيله أنا بوبسيو أن وقت كان الله بيقاميو annagoo ah dumarka waayeelka oo bariga wadankan joognay haddana joogno wax badan aan ka hadalnaa xuquuqda aadanaha waxaan ka hadalnaa caruurta waxaan ka hadalnaa wax walbo annaga taaniina weli maaragtay meel kuma tirsano suuq runta haddii la rabo waxaan aan go-aan ku gaarnay in haddii raalli ka noqdo dib u eegista constitutionka in lagu daro dhammaan hay-adaha guud ee qaranka si ay wax ku ool u noqdaan gaar ahaan qoondooyinka jagooyinka laysku doorta iyo kuwa laysku magacaababa dowladda iyo guddiyada madaxa bannaan oo dhan oo qaranka waxaan rabaa masalaadda inay noqoto jinsi walba waa in uusan ka badnaanin 70%. jinsiga kan ugu yarna waa inuuna ka yaraanin 30%. haddii aan la yidhaaho waa si fiican idinku sharxi doonaa laakiin hadda si aan u boobsiino dad badan waxay isleeyihiin waxaan waa iska dream ama way eegsanayaan ama way qoslayaan haddii la rabo runta wadankan dumarka iyo ragga waa wada leeyahay wadanka mar walbana waxaan annaga aan ku dadaalnaa caruurta waayeelka iyo inta naafada ahba annagay tahay mas-uuliyadeena madaxda mas-uuliyadeeda waa inay sharciyada ay jaangooyaan ay sharciyada wadanka oo ku dhaqmi lahaa si cadaalada inay u maamulaan aad baa u mahadsantihiin
Thank you, Asli. I think that brings us to the conclusion of interventionists. I would like to commend and thank James Iswani's pointers and also EU ambassador. I also commend ambassadors who echoed what the two ambassadors said. But I just want to tell you one thing. We, the federal government of Somalia and federal member states, we love each other. Like the only thing I cannot tell is who is the husband and who is the wife. But sometimes, you know the families. Yeah. You did speak about addressing issues like human rights, rule of law, women and gender, inclusive politics, relationship between FMS and FGS. I want to kick the ball back before I conclude to 3 ministries, and as far as elections are concerned, to Chairwoman Halima. So let me begin with Salah, then Deeqa, then Hassan Haji, and finally Halima. So Salah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Excellency. I don't have much to say, but since I represent a whole host of ministries in this forum, I just want to go back and address an issue that was also highly addressed here. The issue of inclusivity, participation, and representation for the youth and the various aspects of the society. I think that is very much an important subject matter that we need to address. For instance, recently when the Prime Minister and the President have traveled to the regions across Galmudug, the turnout of the people, both old and young, male and female, and aptitude for participation and involvement in government was very high. I was with the Prime Minister when he was in Baydaba. He also went to Hudur, Marka, places that have never seen high-level government officials, prime ministers or presidents or ministers. I think there are many donors here who help us and support the Ministry of Interior and others in programs such as the stabilization program. We cannot be stuck with legal documentation and elite-driven process at the top. We also have to account for the views and the role of the average citizen. The Ministry of Interior has, as the Finnish ambassador has alluded to, done a very good work on reconciliation framework, peace building. And that has been practically applied in Horsey and Herale and in the Galmudug reconciliation process. I think we need to spread that to places like Marka, Hudra, and every other district that really deserves the attention of everybody. So that's something I want to acknowledge. Inclusivity has been extensively addressed even by myself and others in terms of the federal government and the federal member states. That is definitely the elephant in the room, and it needs all the attention that we need to give to it. But we must address the different dimensions of inclusivity, starting with gender. I am glad to say